Hello everybody, my name is Zen and I want to talk about BlizzCon 2023. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration. There were some bad things that happened with this convention this particular year, but overall I had a fairly good time. So I was there. And I got there Thursday night. BlizzCon starts Friday morning and goes, through Friday, and then it has a second day on Saturday. And then I ended up leaving Sunday and going and seeing family. We're gonna talk about all of that. I'm gonna tell the story of it. So if you're a person who generally watches my videos, like my Terraria stuff, or even my big RPG playthroughs like Baldur's Gate, and you like listening to me tell some of these stories and getting kind of wholesome and everything, we're going to talk a lot about that. And we're also going to discuss the convention, bring a bunch of information out here about what happened this year with BlizzCon and why it was different, and also just kind of generally talk about my experience and what I think of the announcements and whatnot. So it's gonna be a fun little relaxed video. We're gonna have some visual stuff, but for the most part, I'm gonna have Diablo in the background for you guys, so you can watch that and enjoy it. But before we jump in, let's give a little context. So I've been to two previous BlizzCons outside of this one. So I went to 2018 and 2019, and then obviously the world shut down for a while there, and now I've gone to 2023. That doesn't mean that I wasn't not familiar with BlizzCon, because I covered it in a media sense for many years before that, and I've been watching BlizzCon stuff since the very first year. Like the very first year that they had a BlizzCon, they announced Burning Crusade. They talked a lot about the Burning Crusade, and I remember very distinctly watching panels on YouTube because I was just devouring. I just wanted all of that information. It was great. And I've been watching stuff ever since then. Whenever they came out with the virtual ticket, I was always getting that stuff. And you know, I've been generally interested in BlizzCon for a while. And so I have a long history of understanding kind of what's going on there and talking with other people who have attended. And again, I went 2018, which for many Diablo players they consider that the bad year, and then 2019 they consider that the good year. My experience varies a little bit on that. I enjoyed both of those years, but that's just my experience. And then 2023, we enter a whole new world, a whole new realm of existence for BlizzCon. We're going to talk about why it was so different. But we need to talk about how the convention is generally laid out and ran first, so that way everything else makes sense. So BlizzCon is an interesting convention because it is meant for Blizzard games, and at BlizzCons you generally get some kind of news based on, you know, whatever your favorite game is, whether it's World of Warcraft or StarCraft or Diablo or, you know, whatever. You generally get some news for those games, and in the past they've also generally had panels and whatnot. So some panels are far more expendable than others, but you could basically account for a major Warcraft panel for like what's coming up next if you play WoW. Generally, there's a Diablo panel or two. In the past with Diablo 3, it was talking a lot about like just what's coming up with the game and the changes being made. And then when they had like the Reaper of Souls announcement, that was a pretty big year. So we get swaths of information depending on what kind of cycle we're in for game releases, and that's totally fine. Then there are some other panels where it's like, let's talk to the artists about how they make 3D models and get those into like workable characters for Heroes of the Storm. And honestly, I actually love those panels. As someone who has worked in game design, I'm like fascinated by the processes of other companies and hearing the insights of these people. But those kind of panels aren't for everybody. Totally understand. There's a lot of people who skip over them. Like voice acting panels, those are cool, where you have some of the voice actors out. But if you're not really interested in those particular voice actors or that particular game, I can see why it's just skippable for some people. But you would have, these big panels, some announcements. You always get like an opening ceremony where they talk about all the big announcements coming out, and they have like this big show, and it's usually really cool to watch. It's been a couple of years where it was a little rocky, but most of the time it's been pretty good. And then at BlizzCon itself, there's typically demo areas set up to play the new stuff that was announced. You could usually find a developer there or two just to kind of talk about the games that you're interested in or whatever game they worked on. You can learn a lot about their position at the companies and whatnot. And usually the event is mostly staffed by Blizzard staff. Like they're volunteering to do this stuff, like letting people, I don't know, into the queues for demo areas or stuff like that, or kind of guiding people where to go. So like there's a lot of Blizzard people there, and there's a lot of cool news and whatnot. But the real reason, the heart of BlizzCon is not to see all that stuff. It's actually for the people there, for all of the people that are there around you. The reason you go to BlizzCon is to hang out with the guys that you've been playing video games with for years. That's the true reason. And oftentimes you also get to meet a bunch of new people too and learn about what their passions are, you know? Maybe you do meet another World of Warcraft player and you find out that you guys are on the same server and you're like, oh my goodness, we should play and hang out. That stuff happens and is awesome when it does. For me, in 2018, when I went, I took a bunch of people from our World of Warcraft raiding guild who I'd been playing with for years at that point, and some of them I had never met in person, so it was cool to meet up, and we got there like a day or 2 days early. We did like an escape room, and it was really fun. Like, 2018 was a great year to hang out with them and just be in that experience of like, yes, this is about the people around you. And then like 2019, also had a bunch of my raid team there, and it was great. I don't really play World of Warcraft anymore just because I have started my own business and I'm a very busy person. As any of you who have owned your own business understand. Those of you who don't, think of it like it's a never-ending cycle of trying to feed the beast, and you can never satiate the beast. It's just constant work, always, 100% of the time. So I just don't have time to do that anymore. But I am also a content creator and have many associates and people who I have worked with in the past. So it's really cool to go and chat with the other people around me, the other content creators, and be able to interact with them and catch up on stuff for sometimes, we haven't talked in a while, and it's just because we're busy. And that's the juice. That's the juice for me, and that's the juice for most people going to BlizzCon, is that stuff. And everything else is bonus. And in recent years, when you attend BlizzCon, you typically get whatever virtual ticket there is, which would allow you to go back and watch all the panels that you couldn't attend because you're too busy hanging out with your friends, which is totally cool because sitting in the room, unless you're really interested in a particular thing, like a World of Warcraft panel or a Diablo panel that you want to learn about, like the next thing coming up, it's better to watch it online when you can participate. It's just like in the listening aspect of it, as opposed to the discussion part of it, which tends to happen when you're sitting in a panel with a bunch of friends. Like, you miss stuff because you're talking with each other over what was just, said or whatnot. And that's totally fine. This year, didn't have to worry about that. Everything was free to watch. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, there's the reason to go to BlizzCon is the people. And I think that is something really important to know before we go further. As for the layout of the Anaheim Convention Center, I'm going to pull up a picture here. I think this is one of the best pictures I can get to show how everything is laid out, so that way you can have like a mind's eye if you've never been to the Anaheim Convention Center. Before I ever went to BlizzCon, I went to the NAMM show a bunch of times. I used to go to that yearly, which is a big music convention for musicians. It's like a bunch of instruments and whatnot, and like vendors are coming out from like Guitar Center and whatnot to like get whatever product that they're gonna be selling that year. It's like one of those like conventions for business people, but it's really cool for musicians as well. So I was already familiar with the Anaheim Convention Center pre-2018. So I had an idea of what I was getting into, but for anyone who's never been there, like I said, this is an important picture to take a look at. So you have a bunch of halls. These halls are just giant open areas. And usually in previous years, you had most of the main announcements in Hall D. Hall D is the largest part of the convention center. That is where the main stage in previous years has always been. And then Hall C, B, and A had been broken up into different areas. Like, for example, let's say in previous years, it might have been 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2018. Actually, it might have been 2019. You had the Hall B, which was mostly like a star, or it might have been A, was like a StarCraft stage, and there you could watch like the StarCraft finals because they were doing the esports stuff there. And then like the previous Hall C and B would have other things set up, like other stages. So Hall D, C, B, and A would all have stages set up, and what was going on in those halls were demo areas and being able to sit down and watch panels. So like each hall had like a different panel going on at any given time, or esports going on as well. And like when they were doing Heroes of the Storm esports and StarCraft esports and Overwatch esports, like all of that was taking place in these other halls. And then the arena area, which is what it sounds like. It's like a tiered seating, like theater. And in there, they also did a bunch of esports. Like 2019, they had the Overwatch arena in there, but it is a smaller area. So all of the other halls are massive, tons of walking space, and that is usually where all of the different stages were set up. Also, in previous years, Hall E, which is like a subterranean level, is where they did most of the check-in. You would go and get your badges from there. They had the store down there, so you could buy stuff from the BlizzCon store. But there was some stuff going on this year as far as like renovation. So Hall E, as far as I know, was not really accessible. So things had changed. Well, again, we'll talk about the changes in a moment. But then outside of the convention center, you have the Hilton and the Marriott, which are the two major hotels there. They're the expensive places to stay because you're just like a minute from walking distance to the convention center. And then there's a bunch of parking around the convention center for people who are driving or had rented cars and whatnot. Now, it's also important to note that BlizzCon does have an upstairs area where they have like these big meeting rooms, and they have a whole ballroom and whatnot. That most of that stuff goes unused for BlizzCon, but they do have like an upstairs area that when they introduced the Portal Pass, which is kind of like a more expensive BlizzCon ticket, they had a whole lounge up there for Portal Pass people to go hang out at. You have to have a Portal Pass ticket to get up there. And also, there's the media area upstairs, which is exclusively for media and employees and whatnot, where you can go sit down. It's like a big war room where they have a bunch of tables laid out, all facing the front of the room where screens are. So if you want to watch the panels or whatever interesting panel is going on at that moment, you can watch it from there. Each table has like a bunch of power strips and whatnot to charge your laptops. And if people are like writing articles for the thing, they could just sit in there and do their work. They also typically have some food and access to some demo stations that are not down below where you have to wait a long time. So like media have an additional area that helps them get their work done. And that's really all you have to think of that. There's in the past also the meeting rooms that you see on the right-hand side of this map, on the north side of the convention center, were used for things like the Dark Moon Fair, which is this kind of cool thing they introduced, I think in 2018. There's like a cool little themed area. Sometimes there's like, there were like stages there to do smaller panels. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool little area, but that's not usually used outside of like weird little niche things. So hopefully that gives you a good, mind's eye, like bird's eye view of how BlizzCon is laid out. So when I'm talking about stuff as we go throughout this video, you have a fairly clear idea of what I'm talking about. But let's jump into story time. This is what I'm excited about. So I am a very busy person. I have 4 kids. I would have loved to have flown into LA on Wednesday night, but that's just not doable with having 4 kids, especially with Halloween right there. And it's just, it's not a viable thing for me. So I had to fly in on Thursday before the convention. And just because of where I'm at, I live in Florida, I'm in Jacksonville, and it's difficult to find relatively cheap flights out of here that fly into LA at a reasonable time. So as a tip for anybody who is planning to do any convention in LA or fly into LA, if you're going to get in around 5 p.m., that's a terrible time to get in because that's when traffic is generally really bad, especially if you're on your way to Anaheim. So I know that ahead of time. I used to live in California. I was born and raised in California. So I have this understanding of this kind of stuff beforehand. So it helps me plan. And so my plan was to get in Friday night. Now, in 2019, Thursday night, but this really hurt me in 2019 because I had a plane that got delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. And I was supposed to get in at like 8 p.m. on Thursday night. It was going to be great. It might have been a little bit earlier than that. And I didn't get in until like 2 or 3 a.m. because of all the delays and everything. And that really sucks. And in 2019, I did not sleep. I just stayed up. I went to IHOP with a bunch of, friends and other content creators. And then I took a quick shower at the place I was staying, and then went back to the convention center and stayed up for the rest of the day. It was a rough one. That was a rough one for me, but we got through it eventually. Now, when it comes to this year, I kind of knew that might be a possibility, but I still could only do so much. I had to be landing around 11 p.m. and I had rented a car. It was just me this year that was going. In 2018, I took my wife, and in future years, I plan on taking her again, but just because of, again, family and whatnot, it's hard to plan that out. So I flew in, got my rental car, and got to my hotel, which is about 5 minutes away. I got a fairly close hotel, and got that all done by midnight. It went pretty quick. So managed to settle down a little bit, although I was really excited. Then did the whole setting my alarm for, I think it was like 7 a.m. or it might have been like 6:30. And then just constantly waking up like every hour, excited to get to the convention center. But I did eventually get up and head down there. I, again, remember, had just gotten in the night before. I did not have my badge yet. And for the last 2 years, I've gone as media. So I don't pay for my BlizzCon ticket. I need to disclose that. I get to go and be there as media. So I get that experience of being able to get to the media room and get around a lot easier, but that allows me to do my job as well. So that Thursday night, there was like a mixer where all the other content creators and whatnot were getting together and hanging out, and I could have gotten my media badge there, but unfortunately, again, I missed it because I got in so late. So I had to get it Friday morning. Now, this is the start of the bad, and this is going to continue throughout as like a theme, and I'm going to just kind of reference it as poor communication. I think that's the best thing to speak about here, because it's not like and I said this to other people who I've heard stories from that they didn't enjoy BlizzCon 2023, and it always boiled down to poor communication in some way or another. And nobody at the convention center, like I said, wants you to have a bad time. They want you to enjoy yourself. But it was just down to, again, very poor communication that ruined things for some people. So I drove down to the convention center, I parked, and I wanted to park on the north side. There's a north side parking, but it was quickly filling up, and I was like, the traffic is really bad right there. I'm getting in later than I wanted to, but that's just because I took my time getting out of bed, even though I couldn't sleep. And I went down to the south part. Remember the map, right? I went down to the southern part of the convention center where like Hall D is, and I walked up and around, and they have a little entrance there, but it's not open. The entrance is closed off at that point because everybody's funneling in between the Hilton and the Marriott, because that's where the main entrance is, and they let you in that way. So I was like, okay, I don't know, where to get my media badge, which I know is going to be a quicker process than someone who's just getting their normal badge, so it's not like I'm too worried about it. And 2, I don't really know where anything is located. The communication prior to BlizzCon was fairly low on like how things are going to work. And I went in with a mission. I knew that media had a special entrance at the arena on the north side, and I needed to get there. So eventually I needed to work my way up there. So I asked one of the very polite employees down on the south side, like, hey, where do I go to get my media badge? And she said, the North Hall. And I'm thinking, I've been to BlizzCon a couple times, and I know that, the world shut down. It's been a few years, and things got a little changed here, but remember there being a North Hall, so I'm trying to think, like, ooh, what does that even mean? And so I ask her kind of directions, and she gives me a vague answer, like, oh, it's on the north side of the convention center near the arena. It's like, okay, so I'm thinking it might be that the place where they had the Dark Moon Fair before. Like thinking, okay, that might be where I need to go. Totally fine, nothing wrong with that. So let's do that. So I walk up and through the like front entrance area, which means I have to go like down and around the Marriott, all the way past the crazy crowd that is gathering outside the convention center out front, and have to cut across over to the Hilton and then walk back towards the convention center, right? Because I'm figuring I can kind of squeeze between that the Hilton Hotel and the convention center to get up to the north area, maybe get my badge from there. I start doing that, and I'm following behind two people who, one is in a wheelchair and the other one is pushing her, and I'm behind them, but I hear them stop and ask where the media area is, and they were told the North Hall. So they were led the same direction I was, and we were both headed the same direction. I just happened to be walking behind them. And they stop at like the corner of the hotel and the convention center, because there's that's where everybody's kind of gathering, and they're trying to ask, like, wait, how do we get to the North Hall from here? And I just kind of squeezed past them, and I went past and tried to get in between the two buildings, and there was like a little area to get through. So I get to that, and there's a convention center. Now this is a key thing to distinguish here. There are convention center workers, the people who the Anaheim Convention Center like has there working as like security and whatnot, and letting people in. And then there's the actual like Blizzard staff that are staffing the event too. And those are two different people, right? So this was one of the convention center people, and I said, asked if there was a way that I could get through, and she politely said no. I asked like, hey, I need to get to the media area that's up there, and she said, no, you cannot go through this way. So I was like, okay, well, where do I have to go? And she's like, I have no idea where the media area is. I'm like, cool, perfect. Okay, I'm starting to see this unfold, this communication thing. You have no idea where the media area is, but I understand, you're just a convention center worker. The Blizzard people told me where the media area is, but they told me to kind of go this way in my instructions, and I went this way, and now I can't get that way. So now I have to go back down to where the huge crowd of people is, and I meet back up with those two, the one in the wheelchair, and they're still discussing it with some of the other people there working a particular entrance, and they're like asking like, well, how do we get to this North Hall? They're like, you have to go all the way around the Hilton. You have to go out, up Hotel Way, which is the street there. It's like a really tiny street entrance to the Hilton, and then up around the north entrance all the way around through to the arena, and then over to the North Hall, which at this point had been described as where that meeting room area is, outside of the convention center. So okay, cool. They have a wheelchair. Like, that's kind of unreasonable for them to do. So they were asking for like an escort to get up to the arena, and the people were like, just no, we can't do that. I was like, oh. So I felt really bad for them, but I was a bit in a hurry, so I took off, went up past Hotel Way, walked all the way around. Literally took like 10 minutes to hike all the way around. It's bad when you're going to be on your feet all day long. And got around to the arena, and like the entrance was like way out of the way. Finally got through, and then was led over to that like meeting room area on the map, which happens to be the quote-unquote North Hall. And thankfully, there was a fairly sizable line for general attendance to get their badges. And, unfortunately, people have to show up on that Friday morning to get their stuff. They can't pre-get it or anything, so it happens. But I got through to the like little media line, and there was a guy that just quickly helped me. Like, as soon as I walked up, I managed to talk to him. He printed my thing off, it pointed me the direction to go, which was to like get the wristband and everything. So I went upstairs, got my wristband, and in BlizzCon Pass, you would also get like a goodie box or whatever. Like I believe 2019 was the statues that we got. So we got like the Warcraft statues for the anniversary of Warcraft. Those were cool. Like they had a footman and an orc. So you had like a human and an orc, and I think you got to choose between them, and I ended up trading one of mine because I got an extra one, so I ended up trading one of the other ones, so I had both, and we still have those to this day in our house, and they're really cool. But this year, it was a backpack. That was all it was. Which, to be fair, I don't mind, because when they give you all these little tchotchkes, like bobbleheads and whatnot, it's just like random crap that, man, I collect a lot of stuff and I just don't got space for that. Even in my new house, I don't got space for that. And like my whole office area right now is just filled with miniatures that I'm having to paint for commissions. And so I don't got space for that stuff. So I was kind of excited to not get that, but it was just a backpack. And that's kind of a shame. But I did get my media badge, and now that we've kind of established, like, oof, that was a little bumpy. So getting to that was a little scary, but we did it. That theme is going to continue, and I'm just going to like now go at breakneck speed now that you've kind of been introduced to the idea of things aren't going super smooth to this BlizzCon. So I got over to the media entrance at the arena and met up with a bunch of people. Got to hang out with the community managers for Diablo, Adam and Rich and Casey, and they're great. Got to meet Rich and Casey for the first time in person. I had already met Adam before. We spent some time together, so it's like it's cool. I was like catching up with friends, and I talk with them all the time, so it's cool to be like, oh yes, you are an actual human being. It's nice to interact on that level. And then I met up with all of the other content creators for Diablo, because we're Diablo partners and we chat quite a bit, even outside of like work experience and whatnot, just because we all know each other. So it was cool to hang out with them and get caught up on life and everything as we waited outside the arena at the press entrance. And we were told, and this is an important thing because some people were very misinformed on this, and I've seen misinformation being brought out that we'll chat about real quick as we get into this whole like opening ceremony. We were told ahead of time where the media entrance was from our contacts, which is great. It's really nice to have that communication. And we were told ahead of time that we had a certain amount of seating set out for us. Like we had a reserved area that was reserved for us, and we got to go in before everybody else so we can kind of get our seats. However, if we weren't there by a certain point and we didn't get, into our seats by a certain point, those seats would eventually be released to general attendance. And if we wanted to go sit in one of the other halls, Hall D, C, B, and A, thinking again in years past, Hall D was like the major hall where all the big announcements were on stage there, then we would have to enter with general attendance. Otherwise, if we just wanted to be in the press area with all of our friends, essentially, then going through the arena, and we'll be seated in the arena. It's like, okay, cool. So I have an expectation about this ahead of time, that the arena is not going to be the main announcement area. It's going to be one of the side areas. It's going to be the esport area or something like that, like the Overwatch arena, where the esports stuff will take place, but we're going to be able to watch the opening ceremony there. And that's great, because in my head, I'm thinking, cool, yeah, let general attendance hang out in Hall D all together, because that's such a cool experience. I got to do it both in 2018 and 2019. It's an electric feeling, and it'd be cool to just let the media kind of hang out and do our own thing. Whatever. We don't need to be in Hall D necessarily. So that was kind of my thought going into this, and then we get led in and we get taken to our area, which is not on the floor. So the floor would be the best place in the arena because you're right up against the stage. We were in the tiered seating on levels 2 and 3. So if you got there early, you'd be in level 2. If you were one of the later entries into the press area, you level 2 filled up, you'd have to go up to level 3. So it's like, okay, cool. That sets an expectation that, we're not even on the ground floor here. So it's like, cool. I have an expectation what this is going to be. And then we're looking at the stage because we got let in early. Like we had 2 hours essentially to wait until the opening ceremony. A lot of bathroom breaks were had. And we're sitting there, and I'm kind of looking at the stage and going, they really went all out on this stage, which is awesome. Like, I wonder what the other halls look like, because we had no idea at this point. We had been given a BlizzCon map, which I will point to in just a moment, and we're like, okay, this is interesting. Like, this is definitely a different experience than previous years. Like, this is a cool arena, and I could see them doing some esports on here, right? I'm still having that expectation, but I'm like, everything else is happening in the other halls. But it wasn't. So this was the map that was given to us at the convention. So if you had never been, it's a nice reminder of like where things are and where you need to go for any given point. And once I opened this map up, it kind of dawned on me that this wasn't like previous years. And I had kind of heard a little bit prior to the convention center that this was going to be a more experiential kind of thing that they were going for. It's like, all right, that already sets a different tone, right? So I'm looking at this map and I'm realizing, oh, there are no main stages here, because on this map, on the arena, it says community night, opening ceremony, and panel discussions. It's like, oh, everything's happening in the arena. Oh, well, then what's happening in the other places? No idea. Apparently, there's seating for people there, right? Because they were told ahead of time that that's where they could go sit and watch the opening ceremony. But for general attendance, it was a lottery that happened whether or not they got to sit in the BlizzCon arena. And if you were two people who were together, if one of you got the invite to go into the arena and the other didn't, you could not go together. So that was a thing that general attendance heard about that I had no idea, right? So I was like completely in the dark. But I'm looking at this map and I'm realizing like, okay, Hall D is all of the Warcraft stuff. They have Rumble, they have the Darkmoon Fair, they have Hearthstone and Warcraft. It's like, cool. So then Hall C and B is both Overwatch stuff. And I'm going, man, that's a big area for Overwatch. Especially considering like prior to BlizzCon, they were kind of fumbling the Overwatch League. And I'm like, this is a weird one. And then Hall A, was all Diablo. It's like, cool, that makes sense. Considering you were likely going to get an expansion announcement. That's kind of what the expectation was going up. And then you can kind of see on this map now that like, oh, where the registration was, the North Hall and the BlizzCon store, below that. And it's like, okay, I see how they've laid this out now compared to previous years. So this is when things get a little interesting, because people started getting, the general attendance got really, really angry, as in my opinion, I think they should be, because they're paying a lot of money to come to this convention, to get put into a lottery, to get put into the arena, to actually watch the opening ceremony live, like from the same room. Otherwise, you had to filter into overflow seating in the other halls, and I'll tell you right off the bat, that was not a lot of seating. So I wasn't there in the other halls during opening ceremony. I can't tell you how packed they were, but I can tell you that when general attendance started coming into the arena, it was a lot of people. And it filled up really quick. So I'm thinking, man, I don't even understand like how much seating they have in this other place, but I really hope that it is enough for people. Granted, the Overwatch World Cup had quite a bit of extra seating, because they had like a big arena there that they kind of set up with tiered seating. But even then, if you're really interested in Overwatch, that's probably where you were going to go, and that filled up fairly quick as well. But for my predictions of this opening ceremony, of what I wanted to see, I guess it's not a prediction, just my wishes of what I wanted to see, was I wanted to see Phil Spencer come out on stage, because the Xbox acquisition finally went through. Like weeks prior, which is really nice for everybody involved in that, to finally get that out of the way. So I wanted to see Phil Spencer out on stage, which would have been a last minute addition, like totally knew that, but hey, this is my hope. And I told all the people I was hanging out with in the press area, like, hey, this is what I want to see. They all knew, like that was my thing. And anytime I mentioned that, you always got those reactions like, oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Like that would be a really cool thing. And then the second wish was to see Chris Metzen, because he had recently rejoined Blizzard to head all of the Warcraft universe. So I wanted to see those two people. And then outside of that, I really didn't care, because I wasn't really there for the opening ceremony. As we discussed before, I was there for the people and to hang out with the people. So just like ahead of time, I had very low expectations of this BlizzCon, because it's their first one back and everything. And it seemed already like going into it like, oh, there's some weird communication stuff going on here. And I kind of feeling the bumpiness, but from a different perspective than general attendance did, right? Like, again, I had no idea about the lottery until I got home. I had no idea about their experience up until the point where I was on my way home and I started reading about it. And I heard about it on Saturday night before I left and went back to my hotel to sleep and go home. So for some people, this lead up was a lot more disappointing than mine. My experience was a little different. Then again, I had a media badge, so that was always going to be the case to some degree. However, that 2 hour wait was a really nice little wait to just sit and chat with everybody and catch up. As I mentioned, I got to meet people I've never met before, but have been acquainted with in one way or another. So I want to shout out Anna Cake, which is one of the Diablo streamers. She was great to hang out with. She was super nice. And then Woody he's also a person that I've never met, because neither one of them have ever been to BlizzCon. This was their first BlizzCon. It was just cool to hang out with and chat with people that I've talked with before through various, Diablo partner stuff, but never have ever met in person. It's always a weird experience to be like, oh, you are a real person. And in general, this is a funny little thing. If you ever go to BlizzCon and you see the Diablo partners walking around, most people are really tall. I'm above average on height, but the vast majority of Diablo partners are really tall people, even higher than I am. So it's a weird experience because in previous years you're being like, wow, you're really tall. the people you're hanging out with, if they tower above you and you're higher than average height, it's a little intimidating. And then every year since 2018, where this was an expectation now, is I kind of judge people on their height. I'm like, okay, where do you stand in the in the tier of Diablo content creators? Are you super tall, or are you just kind of average like me? And everybody I met was generally really tall. So it's just a weird little thing. I don't know what it is about Diablo that invites tall creators, but yeah, Anna Cake and Woody Joe were great to meet. There were a bunch of other people there that I met and enjoyed hanging out with, like Gymnasium, for example. A lot of people from the max roll side of things, which is a weird experience. Just a little side note, because for so long I worked on Diablo fans, and I left back right before Diablo 4 came out for various reasons, mostly including the fact that I didn't feel like the site was getting support from higher ups that it needed, and things that I kept suggesting to help grow and improve the site just kept getting shut down for various reasons. So it was just like, okay, this is not the place for me anymore. So I left. But back then, when I was working on that site, places like Maxroll or Icy Veins and stuff like that, they were all competitors. They were friends, but you always saw them as competitors. It's kind of the same thing. If you work at GameSpot and you meet somebody from IGN, they're going to be your friend, but at the same time there's always that oh, you're on a competing site, can't give you all the information here, even though that's a really weird thing. But it was fun to hang out with the Maxroll people. They're all great people. They're all friends. Again, everybody here is a friend that we got to hang out with, and that was the point of me going to BlizzCon to begin with. So the opening ceremony happened. We did get Phil Spencer, and I'll tell you what, the crowd went wild. It was awesome to see him come out and chat. First time I've ever seen Phil Spencer live in person, which is awesome. And then, yeah, sure enough, we got a Diablo expansion announcement. That was cool. Got basically no information other than a brand new class is coming, one that's never been in Diablo before. I got a little bit of information about that later. That's fun to speculate on. And then finally, a lot of Warcraft information, a lot of World of Warcraft information. Good stuff, actually. And then Chris Metzen came out, and so both of my things were fulfilled. That's all that I wanted, and it was great. As far as the World of Warcraft stuff, I haven't really been playing since Shadowlands. Actually, I haven't played at all throughout Dragonflight and leading up to Dragonflight. I played a little bit of Classic here and there, and I really enjoy Classic, but I've always wanted retail WoW to catch me again, to bring me back. And there's various reasons outside of just being busy that hasn't happened. I'll tell you what, after listening to Chris Metzen talk, because he is a master orator, he is insane at grabbing the crowd. So I've gone back and watched part of the opening ceremony with him a couple times now to show other people who just didn't get to watch it. And I like sitting down and chatting with them. So and having that experience with another person is a fun experience. And both times I watched it, you could tell from the stream that the crowd was enjoying it, but you don't get the real sense because they're not loud enough in the stream. In person, People loved having him. He had the whole BlizzCon arena by the balls. It was an incredible thing to watch this man do his job. And I'm watching it and I'm going, man, damn it, you guys are bringing me back. Like, I am back on board. I want to try this next era of World of Warcraft. And so I may do some videos on that. We'll see. But at the end of the opening ceremony, I knew that I really didn't have anything else to do on Friday because there were no panels I was going to go sit down for and watch. That I was going to take. I should say that differently. There was no panels I was going to take the time to go sit down and watch because I'll just watch them at home. The only one that was the exception was the Diablo panel on Saturday, but that was like late on Saturday, and I just didn't have any desire to watch any of the panels. So what did I do? Well, I went over to the Diablo Hall A, and was absolutely blown away by how they decorated everything. And later on, after I spent quite a bit of time in Hall A, just catching up with people and chatting, I eventually went over to the other halls and again was blown away by the decorations that they put up to immerse yourself in BlizzCon. Like, it was awesome. For example, the Diablo Hall had like where the overflow seating was to watch the panels and whatnot. It was like pews that were set up like classic like church pews, which is perfect. They had the hall where the streamers were set up because they had streamers playing Diablo 4 throughout the weekend, where they had the back of the hall and then the main screen where you could watch the panels. They had the Tree of Whispers that was there, that was like crafted in person. It looked freaking awesome. Yeah, it was a really, really, really cool. And then you go over to the Overwatch areas. Now, the Hall B, where the World Cup was going on, felt full because they had a huge setup to watch the World Cup. But out front of it felt kind of empty. Like, as you entered the Hall B from the main entrance, yeah, it felt really empty. There wasn't a lot going on. It was only until that you got like further into the hall where you saw like the big setup to watch the World Cup that you're like, oh, there's more here, but it felt really empty. And then you go into Hall C where they had demo stations to play the new hero that got announced, and I think there was like a whole demo area for that, but it was super empty in comparison. I'm going, man, you guys could have put more stuff in here. And then you go over to Hall D, and that was like a night and day difference between the Overwatch area, because the whole Warcraft area was packed in and everybody was like shoulder to shoulder trying to get through. Hearthstone had their cool tavern set up. They had a huge demo area that you could play the new stuff that they had announced. The World of Warcraft area was really, really cool. But again, they had a demo area that was taking up a lot of space. They had a streamer area that was taking up a lot of space. And they had a whole lot of space to walk around, but it just didn't end up being a lot of space because there were so many people. The Warcraft Rumble area was incredibly cool, which, by the way, if you haven't played Rumble, go download it for free. It's great. It's actually really, really fun. I'm going to put a video up on it here shortly. And then they had the Dark Moon Fair, which is a lot of like little carnival games and pin collecting and stuff like that. Not something I'm necessarily interested in, but no wiggle room whatsoever. Like, that whole Hall D was packed, and I think they could have shrunk it. Like, they could have taken Hall C completely out with Overwatch stuff and packed some of that demo stuff into Hall B, in my opinion. Then again, I'm no expert here, but I feel like they could have done that and then put some extra overflow Warcraft stuff into C, because it was a lot. But walking through the halls, though they were really cool and decorated, you get the sense that, oh, this was a different BlizzCon. All of the announcements happened in the arena, and everything else here was just to kind of be like, oh, this is really cool decoration. It felt definitely different. I would say it felt like you could hang out with your friends and enjoy the spaces around you. But man, if you were there for an interest in a game, you were going to be let down, because the presentations of those games, whether it be the panels or demos and stuff, like, it just wasn't it wasn't fulfilled in people's eyes of like, this is something that you could go do. You couldn't go, I mean, you could go play the demos for whatever. There weren't very many demos, but you could go play the demos for whatever. It was a fairly long wait, and at the same time, it was like, well, what's the point of playing these demos? Because most of the stuff that you could play there was going to be out in a short amount of time. There was no Diablo demo area because they had nothing to demo. You could go play Diablo 4 right now. And the expansion announcement, they didn't really give us much information. There was no demo for it. So all that aside, like the decorations, the setups were super cool and immersive, like what they were going for, but it didn't really feel like there was a lot to do for people. So I ended up spending the rest of the day just kind of chilling, just kind of hanging out with friends, talking with them, which ended up being a bit of a problem because in the loud areas I was hanging out with them, I was having to shout quite a lot, especially in the evening. And then when we got to Saturday night, we were shouting a lot because things were really loud. I ended up losing my voice, and it's kind of cutting here and out. Now this is the second attempt at making this video. I got about 20 minutes in before, and my voice just completely gave out. And then I had to do other videos for a couple days. So this is one of those things where, like, even though I'm back for a week, it's just my voice really took a pounding at this event. But yeah, I hung out for the rest of the Friday night, got to know people, went to go hang out with everybody else Friday night. So BlizzCon closed Friday night fairly early compared to previous years. It was like 7 p.m. And I was really just kind of tired from all of the travel the day before and whatnot. I was just like, you know what? What am I going to do? I opened up my phone and I kind of zoom out a little bit on my map. And I was like, what is outside of walking distance for people that anywhere I go to find food is not going to be completely overrun, but within a couple minutes of a drive, so I could go get something. And I had the option of hanging out and chatting with a bunch of people, like associates and whatnot that I had hung out with all day. But I was like, no, I'm too tired, and I want to go call my wife, and I want to talk to my toddler and stuff. I was kind of missing them. So I looked at the map and I found an Arby's. We don't really have Arby's where I'm at. Like there's one within 30 minutes, but it's been so long since I've had Arby's, and I just saw it on the map, but I was like, that's what I want. So I went and got a bunch of food, took it back to my hotel, ate, and just went food coma and just lay down and talked to my wife for a bit and then just passed out. It was great. It was a really good night for me. And then went back to the convention on Saturday. A lot of just hanging out again. And there was one incident where, I had gone up and down to the media area like a dozen times on Friday, and then it was going to be the same on Saturday. I was just going to go up and I got there Saturday morning to go to the media area to get breakfast, because I wasn't going to stop and get breakfast on my way to the convention center, 5 minutes away, and my hotel was charging a ridiculous amount for food. So I was like, no, there's no way. So I went there to the media area, sat down, ate and whatnot. So I had gone up again a couple more times to the media area on Saturday morning. And then I got to see a little bit of what other people were experiencing, because afternoon came around and I was going to head up to meet somebody. And I go over to the escalators that take you upstairs, the one specifically for the media entrance. And there was a guy there. He was a convention center worker, and he was standing in front, which is normal. And I go and I show him the media badge, or the wristband. And he goes, no. This is not a media entrance. And I look at him dead in the eyes. And I say, I have been coming up here for the last 24 hours as the media entrance. And he goes, no, this is not a media entrance. And I look like 1 foot to his right, and there's a sign there. And it says, media area. And I point at it, and I was like, the sign says it's a media area. And he goes, no, man, if you want to get upstairs, you have to go over to the other escalators. And he points like a minute and a half walk up to the south of him. I was just like, I'm thinking in my head, I don't have the energy to fight you right now. So it's like, whatever. So I went up the other way. Totally fine. Not an issue. Just an extra minute walk, right? Get upstairs. I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, that was really weird. Because this guy, totally understand. He's just doing his job. He's a convention center worker. He was told a specific thing, or at least he interpreted something a specific way and thought, like, I'm here blocking. But literally nobody else is going up that entrance except media. I'm thinking, like, why? What is his point today? At one point, is he going to be like, oh, no, I should, maybe I should kind of consider this for a second. Oh, all the media keep coming to me. Maybe this is a media entrance. I kind of be like, all right, no, media, yeah, you can go up. So I'm thinking that while I'm just like sitting down, hanging out, chatting to people. And like an hour and a half later, I talked to somebody and he was like, man, that was really weird. The guy at the escalator to get up to the media area told me it wasn't a media entrance, even though it's been the one that I was like, wait, when did this happen? He was like 2 seconds ago. I was like, this guy's been doing this for like over an hour at this point. Like, how is he not? Anyways, so that was kind of the epitome of people's experiences outside of my own experience. This was happening all over, where people who had the Portal Pass, which is the expensive BlizzCon pass to be able to get to the Portal Pass area, the Portal Pass lounge upstairs, kind of like a media lounge, but not quite as quiet, and to get like access to specific lines that nobody else gets access to, or to get to areas that they only get access to. They were all over the place being told that, no, this is not a Portal Pass area. It's like, are you sure? Like, this is where I was told to go. And they're going, no, you can't go this way. You have to go another way. And this was mostly people that were working the convention center, right? Convention center staff, not Blizzard staff. And again, as I said at the beginning, nobody at the convention center wanted anybody to have a bad time. They were just doing what they were told. And maybe they were told bad information, or maybe they interpreted the information wrong. But this was a pretty rampant problem from other people that I talked to, like various people, not just like people that I was associated with, but just people that randomly I talked to, because I'm like sitting down next to them, asking about how like their convention's going and are they having fun, what they're excited about. And they like constantly, I was having it brought up to me, like, yeah, I have the Portal Pass, but I wasn't able to get into certain areas and I don't understand why. And I was told no for things that I should have been able to get to, but I couldn't. And it was mind boggling until I had that experience with the media entrance guy, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get what they're having to deal with. And some people are far more confrontational than I was going to be in that moment. I, again, didn't feel like I needed to fight this guy. It was like, it's a minute walk, whatever. I'm not going to deal with it. I don't have the energy to invest in this. But these other people who paid $800 for their BlizzCon ticket, yeah, I could see why they would be freaking pissed. And on top of that, some of the Portal Pass people were like, when you bought a Portal Pass, you essentially were getting some free swag that was going to be given to you at the convention. Turns out a lot of that ran out. And there was a bunch of Portal Pass people that didn't get anything. And Saturday night, there was apparently a bunch of people that just felt bad at the BlizzCon store, and they just started handing things out to Portal Pass people that they had, because they're like, this is a crappy situation. These people don't want you to have a bad experience. They want you to have fun, so they tried to remedy it. And that just is very annoying and very bad. And it's really easy to take this experience. So I'm going to talk about the bad, the ugly right now, and why. I'm going to give you a reason why some of this happened. But then we're gonna bookend it with good stuff, right? So there's gonna be more good. It's gonna be a bad sandwich where there's bad stuff in the middle, but the two pieces of the bread are good. But there is absolutely a reason why this stuff happened. Let's take it back a little bit. BlizzCon in past, Blizzard has had an events team. They're the ones who planned BlizzCon and got it all together and whatnot. As it turns out, as we all can expect, in 2020, when the world shut down, Blizzard no longer has a need for an events team. Those people got dissolved. I don't mean literally, that would be gross, but you know what I mean. Like, that team was dissolved. So some people were moved around, some people let go, it's a whole thing. So Blizzard no longer has a full-on events team that could put on something like a BlizzCon. To the extent of who is still on this events team, or who is still able to do this kind of thing, and like people who were able to talk to to press and whatnot and get them their information that they need and set up other information. Like, I don't know the extent of the Blizzard employees that are still there in order to do that. I just know that that team doesn't really exist. So what did they do for BlizzCon this year? Well, they contracted it out. They got another company to do BlizzCon. That explains everything. That is why the experience was way different. That's why the layout was way different. That's why everything was different and poor communication was rampant, is because it was a new company that's not done this before. And they clearly, came up with this idea for this more experiential thing. And it worked, right? The cool experiences that they put in these different halls were awesome. But there wasn't really anything for people to do. And that little last bit takes someone who's done these conventions a lot and, knows what people necessarily want to do, and takes someone on a team being like, we need to have this, this, and this. But it's hard to do that when you're contracting it out and you're working with another company. Do I think that they did a good job? I think if I had to rate them, it'd be like a 5 out of 10. It was very middling. But that's because I think that the experiences that they created, the areas were super cool, but there was just nothing for people to do. So like, if they're going to come back next year with the same contracted company, who knows? Maybe they will have new people, or maybe the Blizzard events team will finally come back, something like that. They're part of Xbox now, so maybe they'll have the Xbox events team help them with this. I don't know. Like, there's a million other factors that we can't really determine how BlizzCon 2024 is going to go. But let's just say they contracted out again. Like, what would I tell them to do different? Which, by the way, I've already provided this feedback in written form. BlizzCon always sends out a survey and all that. So I've already done all this. So don't think I'm like just preaching into dead air. My thing would be to kind of go back a little bit to BlizzCon of old, but keep the different decorations of how they did the halls, because that was really cool. And it combined the best of two worlds, combined the cool stuff to do in previous years for people of all types, and people who want to watch the panels, people who want to meet with friends, and people who want to play demos, and people who just want to be there. Like, allow all of those experiences to still happen and facilitate them, but also keep the cool designs of the different halls. Would I put big stages back in each hall? I don't know, honestly, because I don't know how many people showed up. I don't know. They'll have more information than that, but my expectation is that there would have been big stages in each hall for things to happen. And who knows what's going to go on with esports? Like, the Overwatch League is dead. I haven't seen anything for StarCraft 2 in so long. Maybe there's some World of Warcraft stuff that could happen next year, but like, esports stuff is kind of off the table unless something weird happens in the next 365 days. Who knows? So I would kind of just take the best of the world before and combine it with the good stuff that happened this year, and hyper increase communication amongst the team. Have a leadership team that can really take the head of that and just lead it, because communication was the biggest issue for people. I experienced it on my own, even though I had a different ticket than other people that allowed me a generally better experience than some. And then, fix the portal pass stuff. Like, that's pretty despicable. That these people are paying that much money. Like, I told my wife about that, and she was like, man, I would be so pissed if I paid that much money. I was like, oh, you didn't see the people I talked to. They were pissed. And it was really hard to see that, because it's like, man, I really wish that you could have had the experience I did, which was just okay. Like I had an experience and it was fun and I enjoyed myself, but I didn't really feel like I was, I don't know, having a bad experience, a negative experience outside of that one interaction with the guard guy at the stairs. So it's a weird thing, but that if you see like negative feedback or negative experiences being circulated, like I know there's a really big Reddit thread of some guy that was really pissed, and I actually replied and said like, hey, this is why these things happened. This is why you had a bad experience. Like, don't necessarily take it out on the Blizzard employees who were working the event, because they just wanted you to have a good time. Nobody was wanting you to have a bad time. It just happened to be that way for various reasons. So like putting context there, I hope helped that guy and helped other people. Not that I'm like defending or trying to justify their experience that they had, but just kind of giving them an explanation, right? Because sometimes that's all that angry people want. They just want an explanation of why. And it's like, okay, even if it's a bad explanation, but one that it still explains it, then they can at least put their anger in the correct direction. But, you know, I think it's important to then talk about the rest of BlizzCon, which was not a lot. So I went and watched the Diablo panel, learned a little bit about the expansion, a tiny bit about the expansion. We learned about all this cool upcoming content that's coming to Diablo 4. It was good. It was really nice. And then directly afterwards was the community night, and that is one of my favorite things to do at BlizzCon, because I love watching the cosplay competition. I love watching the other competitions that are happening. It's just a fun, cool celebration of everybody that's there, in my opinion. And I've always loved watching it. And there have been years in the past where they've done like weird hosts for it, but this I thought this year it was fine. It was fine. The hosts were okay. They were Blizzard employees and artists and whatnot, and I think they did a pretty good job despite it not being like their thing. And yeah, I really enjoyed the community night. I had friends that were cosplaying, so it was cool to celebrate them. I was sitting in the press area, so before we even got to the arena for the community night, leading up to the panel, right? So we went in for the panel. We got in early. That was fine. But the weird thing was, one of the community managers for the Diablo 4 team was leading us Diablo partners over to the BlizzCon arena, and he got us all the way to the entrance where they had the people waiting outside to get in to watch the panel. And obviously those people could then sit and wait and watch the community night after. So it was pretty packed. And this guy who's working just kind of stops us. And the community manager, Casey, was like, hey, I'm here with a bunch of media. We're letting them in. And the guy was like, yeah. You don't have a media badge. You have an employee badge. You're not allowed in here. We're not allowed to let you in. Like, they have to be media. And he was like, yeah, yes, I'm letting media in. Like, I've led them here to get them in, to get the media in. He's like, no. You're not allowed in. Like, you don't seem to understand. You don't have a media badge. And us all standing behind him, like, lift our wrists up with our little wristband. We're like, no, you don't understand. We're all media. And he kind of looks and just sees like this sea of like green wristbands. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you're allowed in. And it was just like another example of, oh, there's some weird miscommunication going on here that could have been a little bit better. But we get let in, we watch the panel, like I said, it was fine. And then we kind of filtered out a little bit, but I stayed for the community night after hanging out with some people. It's like, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour later. And I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed watching the cosplay and everything. And I'm sitting watching, and there's like a cohort of people that sat to my left next to me. And like right in the middle of the community night, they're doing the they kept like cycling in the video finalists of like people who submitted videos. And apparently they didn't know whether they were going to be a finalist because the lady sitting next to me, literally to my left, had hers entered, and she was a finalist. And it was the, if you watch the community night, it was the toy maker video, and her whole like thing of people that she was with all freaked out when that video started playing. Like they started just like crazy freaking out, and she just started crying. She was so excited because she was a finalist. And after the video played, I turned and I was like, "Did you make that?" She was like, "Yeah, that was my video." And I was like, "Wow, that was really good. I'm very impressed. Like, good job. I think you should win." And she's just so happy. You could tell, lady on cloud nine, like so wholesome. It was so wholesome. And I, at the same time, as I'm watching the community night, I'm texting my wife because she's at home with the kids watching the community night. And she texts me right after that video and she goes, "Hey, that was our daughter's favorite." She was like, telling me that was my toddler's favorite. She's going to be 3 in the beginning of December, right? So she's young, but she said that was her favorite part of this so far. And so I turned to the lady and I was like, "Hey, my wife just texted me and just let me know that our toddler thought that was the best video." Like, just made her night. And she's just like, was so happy. It would have been a long time since I've seen someone with like that kind of just pure joy. And it was so cool. It was so cool. And then at the end, she won the video contest, and it was so cool to be right there next to her. Like that is the reason I like being at the community night, is because you were celebrating the people around you. And that was exactly what happened. And that was like it was a good culmination of like, this is why BlizzCon is cool, is because of moments like this. You know, you could be sitting next to the person who's going to win the cosplay contest on Saturday during the opening ceremony, and you don't even know it yet. And like, that is just, it is such a cool thing. But at the end of the community night, they had K-pop play, and that was totally not my thing. So I left the BlizzCon arena. I just went and hung out with everybody. And then BlizzCon wrapped up. I went and hung out in the Hilton, or the Marriott, whichever one is the Southern hotel, for hours, just chatting with people, chatting with developers, catching up with people, and then eventually saying bye. And that was, you know, it's hard to do, but, you know, going back to my hotel and hanging out and eventually coming home. So I left Sunday morning to not come home. I went to Nevada, where I used to live. I stayed with a friend, caught up, did all that, and then saw my mom too, because she lives in California, and came over and visited. And it was a fun, cool little like side trip. But at that point, I was really missing my wife and my kids. So then I was really excited to have come home Tuesday morning, and got a really early flight, like a red-eye flight, all the way out. And yeah, got home safely. It was great. Lost my voice, and overall had a really fun time at BlizzCon. Like that's the thing. And this is what I said at the beginning. Like, the reason why I go to BlizzCon is for the people. And that got more than fulfilled for me. I got to meet cool people that I hadn't met before. I got to catch up with people that I had talked to for a long time. And then just kind of fell off during the shutdown of everything. And it was cool. This is a side note, but it's all a part of this, which is leading up to BlizzCon. I, over the summer, have painted more than 300 miniatures for commission work. My work is highly sought out locally. I'm booked for several months out, and they continue to book me because people really like my painting that I do for miniatures. A little side note here too. There was a shadow announcement in the Diablo Hall. They announced a tabletop RPG and a board game experience. And I went and talked to essentially the head of that studio for like, it was like 30 or 45 minutes. Those people they're in on it. They are Diablo fans, and they are one of us, and they look like they're going to make a really cool experience. And they've done other games as well that are really, really good. So looking forward to that. I also got a cool barbarian miniature out of that cool thing. So looking forward to seeing next year. They're going to have a playable demo of it. So that'll be a cool thing for next year. But yeah, I had a lot of work that I've done this summer, filling Etsy orders as well, because I do 3D printing, and also running the channel and being a dad and being a husband. And I, leading into October, didn't realize how burnt out I was, to the point where I had been working on a Mace Windu miniature for Shatterpoint for one of the guys that I paint for and that I play games with. And I just kept having to come back to it because I was really busy with other stuff leading up to BlizzCon, and I just did not want to work on it at all. And I even went and played Shatterpoint with him the weekend before I left, and just lost. And I had lost like 10 games in a row at that point for whatever reason. I just wasn't in my groove. I was trying new stuff. I was being experimental with my gameplay, and I was having fun doing it. But at that particular time, that was like the lowest point that I was at, where I was so burnt out. I even told him, because we had just started a league for our game, I was like, man, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I don't even know if I want to play this game. And it really threw him off. It's like, whoa, like, wasn't expecting that to come from you. You've been really into this. But it came out of nowhere. Just like this huge thing of burnout hit me. And going to BlizzCon was exactly what I needed to get me back into the motivated state, where I'm like hyper motivated now. And for me, that's the juice of BlizzCon, is hanging out with people that are going to motivate me, get me back on that track, and, you know, make me feel like I can come home and just get right back to work and jump right into it and have a lot of fun. So yeah, my experience with BlizzCon was a little different than people's, but I think it was really fun. And it's something that I'm already actively planning to go to next year, except this time bringing my wife, which I think is a way better experience. Definitely go with somebody if you're going to go to BlizzCon. But, you know, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions about BlizzCon from this year, maybe things that I saw, because I scratched the surface on the story for this, let me know in the comments, and I will answer your questions, and I will, especially if you want like suggestions for going, if you've never gone, or, you know, things that you actually want to see at a BlizzCon, and maybe you've gone before, because I can pass that feedback along as well. And then how it's something I want to know, because it's not something I've really been able to chat with people about. How did this stream go? Because they were streaming all the panels, the opening ceremony and everything. I'm not really sure how that went. Do people enjoy that? I don't really know. And you know, I was there, so I'm naturally going to have different like rose tinted goggles on for that. Minus the panels. I'm in the middle of trying to catch up on some of the Warcraft panels and whatnot, but yeah, I want to know what you guys thought of that as well. But thank you very much for sitting through this like hour-long video of me just chatting about BlizzCon. It's fun to get this experience out, to talk about it, because it makes me remember, like, oh, I'm a week out from getting home, or not from getting home, but from leaving, and it's like I had so much fun there. It reminds me, you know, going over these stories of why I'm all motivated, and I'm just excited to get to work tomorrow, which is a weird thing. But, you know, I'm reminded about why I love doing what I do and love making videos. And man, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what's coming next for Diablo, jumping into WoW, making a bunch of videos that I'm already planning on making. Like, this is just fun stuff. It's fun stuff. Oh, and by the way, go download Warcraft Rumble. It's really good. But with all of that being said, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that like button down below, because it helps the channel quite a bit. If you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe. Though I gather most of you probably are if you listen to an hour-long video of me talking about BlizzCon. And we shall see you all next time.